Now, a lot of people say Immortal X-Men just has a bunch of politics and talking, doesn't have a lot of action. And this one, it has its fair share. But before we dive headfirst into this, SCM Nation.
Let me talk to you.
My name is Dorian, this is XCM Comics, and we are continuing our coverage of Immortal X-Men with number 13.
Yeah.
So our story starts off where almost all of the Immortal X-Men stories start off. In the cove with the Quiet Council. And Cypher is sitting where he normally sits in the tree that is Krakoa. And he notices that the leaf starts falling and he is asking Krakoa what's wrong. And Krakoa just says one word, fallen. So this is during the aftermath of them releasing all the information about what Sinister did during the Sinister timeline. And then Emma had to take a trip to the UN and they're pretty much asking, well, how did that go? And Emma's like, not great. So a woman asks Emma that her child got brought back, is her child safe? And Emma's like, I think she is. And the woman's like, you think she is? Pretty much that's a flashback, and Emma doesn't want to share that with the council, so she doesn't say anything about it. So Sebastian Shaw is like, our orders have gone through the floor. They don't trust our product no more, which brings up just a fundamental point that people don't want to know how the sausage is made. They'll eat the sausage, but they don't want to know the process of how that sausage is actually winding up on their table. Because if they did, they might not want to eat that sausage anymore. So in a nutshell, Exodus is like, fuck. If they don't want to live longer, that's on them. Emma's like, Exodus, you don't understand. We're not a self-sustaining state. We make products and we sell it. If people's not buying our products, then we can't sustain ourselves. And we got like months, maybe. And then Emma's like, Shaw, you're a businessman. So it just surprises the hell out of me that you would take the side of the buffoon, she's talking about Colossus, when it came to all this stuff, because you know what was going to happen. And then she's like, even Kurt was here. It probably wouldn't matter because he'd probably take Colossus' side too. So it doesn't really matter. And Professor Xavier is like, stop, Emma. And then he starts to explain how Kurt was pretty much possessed by Orcus and committed all those assassinations. And also during the whole Judgment Day thing, how he died 20 times. And every time he died, he chose to have the memory of that death wasn't erased. So he remembers every single time he died. So Emma pretty much tells Professor Xavier just be quiet and that he's soft. Celine's like, why are people who don't have votes hogging up all the floor time? And Emma pretty much tells Celine that she wishes Hope would have acted a little bit earlier so she could have kicked down the door and she'd have broke her foot off in her ass. So Destiny's pretty much saying that Celine shouldn't be on the Quiet Council. Celine's like, oh, because you read the future and I work for Orcus. And she's like, I don't even need my powers. You broke the law. You attacked us. So technically you shouldn't be on the council. You should be at the pit, but you should at least not have a vote. And Storm's pretty much like, the council's already fractured as it is. We don't need to cause more fractures. We need to keep it as steady as possible because right now nobody trusts us, which nobody should. And Exodus is old school. He's like, we should just pull Sinister out the pit and then let me dive in his mind and I'll pull out the truth from him so we ain't gotta worry about this no more. And then Case pretty much like, how do you know that's not what he wants you to do? So Destiny is still pretty much like, we need to get Celine out of here. And then Celine's like, are you threatening me? Because I can have another magical tantrum. I can do that. And Hope, the gangster that she is, she's pretty much cleaning her gun. Goes, oh, well, I can always shoot you in the head again. I can do that. And then Destiny's like, if the 5 didn't bring you back, then how'd you get back? Because if the 5 brought you back, then you'd have been compromised. And then she's like, I got brought back by magical ways. Now, I'm not going to cover this book because it was very boring, but in the Sinisters book, which is a tie-in to the Fall of X, which is all this, pretty much Mother Righteous brought back Celine. That's why Celine's here. All because of Mother Righteous. And it was Dr. Stasis who convinced Mother Righteous to prove her worth to Orcus. And one thing that Orcus wanted was Celine back so she could be on the council. And Exorcist is like, you know what? We got an easy solution to this dilemma. And he just hits her with some laser beams from his eyes. And he's just like, she dies, the 5 brings her back, she loses her vote. Simple as that. Celine tries to use her magic to attack Exodus, but Exodus is a beast. And he just stops the attack. Now, these are two beings that have been around for thousands of years, so I'm not gonna lie, I've been waiting to see this fight for a long time. So pretty much Exodus is just beating her down. Got her to the point to where he's like, I'm just going to just separate your molecules and spread them to the four corners of the earth. And he starts to do it, and then Storm comes out of nowhere and it's like, stop. And Exodus is like, really? You want to stop me from doing this? And then Storm and Exodus start getting into it, and these are two Omega level mutants, so it's getting crazy now. So Exodus is like, I fight for Krakoa. Who do you fight for? Why are you fighting for this witch? And then Storm's like, okay, if we fight, how many do you think are going to die because of this? Is that really fighting for Krakoa? And then Exodus pretty much stops what he's doing. And Exodus is pretty much having an existential crisis. He's pretty much come to the conclusion that the way they do things on the Quiet Council is messed up and makes no sense, and they should stop. The way that they do it on Araco, the strong are ones that are in power. They make the decisions. He says that's the way it should be. He's pretty much like, you let the snakes into the Garden of Eden and then you expect it to stay the Garden of Eden. That's not how it works. And then he just pretty much gets to the point to where he can't even talk anymore, and then Hope has to come and help him out. So now Cypher pulls aside Professor Xavier when they're by themselves and pretty much tells Professor Xavier that he has a message from Krakoa. So the island pretty much comes clean. It explains how it let Myra X go when Destiny and Mystique was trying to kill her. It also admits that it hasn't been run in the pit like they want it to. Pretty much when Sinister, Professor Xavier, Exodus, Hope, and Emma was down there, it was running it like it was supposed to, where you have like this empty feeling when you're down there. But when the others were down there, like Sabretooth, it gave it like a psychic, almost like peace. And then Sabretooth was able to use that, and that's how Sabretooth and everybody else besides Sinister and the Struckers pretty much got away. Then Professor Xavier just pretty much starts having like a mental breakdown. He starts explaining how when they started this whole Krakoa thing, it was him, Magneto, Myra X, well, it was Myra back then, and it was Apocalypse. Well, Myra went crazy, Magneto left for Araco and got killed, and then Apocalypse just dipped out on him, so he feels like he's by himself and he's trying to hold this all together. Now this is the only time I like have reservations about this, because when he was running his school, he was doing it by himself. Like, he didn't have any help, and 2 out of the 3 people he just named he was fighting against. So I mean, I understand like a school and a nation, it's a lot more people in Krakoa, but still, I mean, this is nothing that he hasn't done before, but I guess this time just the weight of it is just getting to him. So I don't know, that's just my feelings. But he does come up with a pretty good idea. Well, Doug help him come up with this. That's Cypher. And he pretty much announced that after the Hellfire Gala that they're going to dissolve the Quiet Council. The Quiet Council be no more. And Sebastian Stahl starts to flip out. I mean, he is like beside himself. But Professor Xavier's right. Like, this has not been good at all. Like, there was cracks before Sins of Sinister. Sins of Sinister pretty much broke it wide open, and it's just been horrible ever since. So yeah, just clean slate, get rid of the Quiet Council. And Exodus has an issue with it because he feels like now they're going to go to more of like human democracy, and you know, Exodus ain't about that. But Doug pretty much kind of breaks it down to him and says, hey, look, we're able to build a utopia from scratch, and there's nothing more human I could think of than doing that, because a utopia, that's a human thing. And you know, he's giving this great passionate speech, and then all of a sudden Krakoa itself starts to grab Doug and then pulls him down, it looks like, to the pits. Everybody starts to freak out. Hope uses her power to tap into Doug's power, and she starts talking to Krakoa, and Krakoa's like, I gotta protect him. And they're like, protect him from what? And it's being like vague, but he pretty much, or Krakoa said that Cypher's safe, don't worry about it. And then Mystique asks Destiny, what do you see? And she says, I don't really see much of anything. And then Destiny's like, I think we made a mistake. And then Emma's like, just one mistake?